Hello. It's good to see you. Today, I wanted to just do a little bit of a ramble video. I haven't done one of those in a bit on a topic that I discussed previously on my vlog channel. I did a video about this, and it's about quiet people, people who don't talk very much, typically. And it was a video addressed to people who aren't quiet. And I think the title of the video is something like "Let the Quiet People Talk," because that was something that I have dealt with in my life, and I am kind of a quiet person. Now, if you've seen a lot of what I do here, you might not believe me, but in real life, in most situations I'm pretty quiet. I don't talk a whole lot. And if you were to ask most people who know me to describe me, probably one of the first things they would say is, she's quiet. She's so quiet. She hardly ever talks. I didn't even know she could talk for a while. So, that would be something that they would say, is that she's so quiet. Well, it really depends on the situation I'm in. And I think this is actually very common. I think a lot of people are like this, and maybe you're like this. It depends on where you are and who's around and how comfortable you are with them. If you are with, maybe one or two people and you're comfortable, you might be, more talkative and more at ease. But say you're at a party or something where you don't really know anybody, and you might not be as vocal. So that's me. At work, when I was in school, I'm very quiet. When I'm at work, I don't talk a lot unless I have to. I can talk. I think that was one good thing for me about going off to college, was that most of the classes I had required a lot of class participation. You had to speak up, and it kind of pushed me to do that, whereas, it was still scary for me, and that's something that people who talk a lot may not understand. For quiet people, it can be terrifying to even think about having to stand up and talk. It's just the simple act of doing that can be so scary. Or just, raising your hand and saying something in class. Like, there were so many times when I was younger that, I had something I wanted to say, or maybe I knew the answer to the question, but I could not put my hand up. Like, I don't know. I couldn't do it. It was so scary. The thought of me having to, speak out in front of everybody to answer the question was just, I would rather just not. Like, I just keep my hand down. I don't want to do that. So I wanted to make a video, and I wanted to say a few things to people who talk a lot on behalf of quiet people. And I'm certainly not going to speak on behalf of everybody. I don't mean to. I wouldn't want people speaking for me, but just from my experiences as a quiet person, I would like to say a few things to people who talk a lot. Sometimes I refer to them lovingly as magpies, because for me, I like to observe people. I like to listen. I think I'm a pretty good listener. I'm a good conversationalist too. The give and take of a good dialogue. I can participate in that. But what I like to do, I also like to watch people. And sometimes if I'm at a party or some sort of gathering, and you will get just little clusters of people. You know how people kind of just break up into little groups. And sometimes you will come upon a cluster of people, and they're all talkative, and they're all just trying to talk over one another, and they just get louder and louder, especially if alcohol is involved. I notice, because I just kind of watch the dynamic of these groups, and the magpies get louder and louder, and they really just start to sound like a big cluster of magpies to me. It's like, I don't know how nobody is hearing anybody. There's no way. It's just deafening. And I don't even try to participate in a cluster like that, because it is just a cluster at that point. There's no way my voice will ever be heard. So I don't bother. Usually if it's at a gathering at somebody's house, I'll go see if they have like a pet. I'll go in the kitchen and look for a cat or a dog. I'll just hang out with their pets, and I'm perfectly happy back there. If somebody comes in, I'll talk to them, but I'm fine back here. I'm not much of a social butterfly. And people like absolutes, but there are not absolutes when it comes to this kind of thing. Introversion and extroversion, I think, plays a strong role in how much you enjoy talking. I'm not saying it's 100%, but from my experience, it seems like more introverted people tend to be quieter. The more introverted you are, the less likely you are to be the magpie at the party. The more extroverted you are, you might tend to talk more. Again, everybody kind of falls on a continuum. You're not going to find very many people who are just way over here totally introverted or way over here totally extroverted. Everybody's kind of on a continuum in there somewhere. I did a poll on my channel, I don't know, it's a couple of years ago, asking my subscribers, would you consider yourself to be more of an introvert or more of an extrovert? 75% said that they would consider themselves to be more introverted, and 25% said they would consider themselves to be extroverted, which is kind of about what I figured it would be. I figured it would be more introverts than extroverts, and it was. That's just one little poll, but I think there's something to that. I think there's just something different about introverted people. And I think it's wonderful that we have both, that we have introverts and extroverts. I think if you had all of one or all of the other, it wouldn't work. You really need a balance. You need both. So I love the extroverts in my life. I really do. And this comes from a place of love. But this is something I really want to say. There are some things that extroverts need to understand about people who don't talk much, because I hear this all the time. Well, not all the time, but I have people in my life who will say, Mary, you need to talk more. You need to come out of your shell. You don't ever talk. Why are you so quiet? Well, we never ask you why you're so loud. We don't ask, why do you talk so much? Because that would be rude. And that's why we don't. I don't feel like I need to be fixed. I don't think there's something wrong with me because I don't talk a lot in some situations. But when I was younger and people would tell me that, I would feel like there was something wrong with me and I did need to be fixed. So I would try to become a talkative person. And all it did was wear me out. I didn't like it. I cannot just fundamentally change the kind of person I am. Like if it would be like trying to tell an extrovert, why don't you become an introvert? Why don't you stop being so extroverted? Why don't you just stop that and become more introverted? You need to do that. You can't just snap your fingers and do that. It's not possible. It just, it comes down to where you draw your energy from. Introverts draw their energy typically from solitude, peace and quiet. I know I do. I love to spend time by myself. Now, that's not to say that introverts don't like being around people. I like being around people, but then I want to go home. I want to go home. I enjoy it, and then I'm ready to go. Extroverts draw their energy from being around people and talking to people, and that's the difference between introverts and extroverts. And extroverts, just from my experience, don't seem to quite grasp the fact that that is so. Introverts are not like you. They're like your opposite. They are not energized by going to parties and going out to bars and going to loud, boisterous places. That's exhausting. You can have a good time, but it still drains you. And that's how I feel. Even just going to a concert or something like that, where you're around lots of people and it's loud and there's this energy. It's fun and I can have a great time, wonderful experience, but at the end of it, I just need to go home. I need to recharge. It does drain me, even though I love stuff like that. It just drains me. It also drains my wallet, which is why I don't go to concerts. It's so expensive. Oh my God. I overheard somebody talking the other day about going to see somebody in concert and how much the tickets were, and I about passed out. I'm like, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry. So, people who don't talk a lot, I just want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone. All of my life, I've been told I don't talk enough and I need to speak up, come out of my shell. You know, basically just be somebody that you're not. Don't continue to be who you are. I want you to be somebody else, and then you'll be okay. Now, don't worry about it. Don't feel like you have to do that. That would be like going up to a magpie and telling him you need to just stop talking so much. And you not only need to stop talking so much, you need to be okay with it. You need to be happy with it. They wouldn't be happy with it. I wouldn't expect them to be. You know, there are some people who just love to talk. They do. I mean, you probably know people. You probably have people in your life like that. They just love to hear themselves talk. And they should be grateful for us, the people who don't talk a lot, because if we didn't exist, who would listen to them? Because I think a lot of us, I know I have been held captive by these people. They're like land sharks. They will latch onto you and they will just talk and talk and talk until you're deceased. I mean, you can't get away from them. They will almost literally hold you and just talk and talk and talk. And, you know, most of us are very polite and we're just like, how do I get out of this? Oh my God. And there's no way out. And that's when, like, the Jerry Seinfeld thing, like, you start fantasizing about, what would they do if I just jumped out the window right now? Because that's starting to sound really appealing at this point. No, people who talk a lot, be grateful for us, because we're the ones who listen to you when you just can't stop talking and you have this need to unburden yourself. We're there. You always know where we are. You can always find us. Whether we want you to or not, you find us and you talk to us. And we want you to talk most of the time. I mean, most of the time. But you are not alone if you don't talk a lot. And I know it may not seem like I'm one of those people when I make these videos, but you have to remember, when I do these videos, I'm in my room by myself. There's nobody in here but me. And I don't know, I'm just curious to know, and you can tell me in the comments, if you're somebody who doesn't talk a lot, do you talk to yourself a lot when you're alone? Or am I the only one who does that? Like out loud? I organize my thoughts, like if I'm trying to solve a problem or something, I find that talking out loud to myself, there's nobody here, it's just me. And my kids are totally used to it. They always have to ask, Mom, are you talking to me, or are you talking to yourself? I'm talking to myself. Okay. And then they just, if I'm trying to work something out, I will just talk it out. I will just pace in my room and I will just talk. And that's how I solve problems sometimes. And sometimes I don't know why I do it. If I'm mad, I talk to myself to try to get it out. So when I make these videos, I'm totally alone. And the nice thing about it is nobody cuts me off. And for the talkative people, I want to say, and again, I don't mean to speak for everyone, but for myself, being somebody who doesn't talk a lot, I think the thing that ticks me off the most, my number one pet peeve when it comes to you talkative people, is the fact that you will tell me that I need to talk more, but when I try to talk, you cut me off. You won't even let me finish a thought. I'm lucky if I can finish a sentence before you cut me off and either finish my sentence for me and then hijack the conversation, or you will just cut me off and just start talking about something totally different, like I'm not even there. That happens a lot. And I think it's because from my experience, a lot of talkative people don't seem to have a lot of impulse control. And when a thought pops into their head, they just blurt it out. I dealt with that in the past. I had a good friend who did that a lot, to the point where, and your friends who don't talk a lot, for talkative people, you may not have noticed this, but if you do that a lot, eventually your friends who don't talk a lot are just going to stop trying to tell you anything. Because I know I just shut down. It's like, well, When I'm around this person, there's no point in trying to say anything. So if they ask me, oh, how are you doing? How have you been? All I'm going to say is, oh, I'm fine. You? Because I know, really, the only reason they're asking me that is because they have something they want to tell me. And if I try to answer the question, they're just going to cut me off anyway. I'm not going to get to answer the question. And they'll never come back to it. So I will just say, oh, fine. You? I mean, my life could be falling apart, but I'm not going to tell you that because I know that you're not really interested. You're only asking me to be polite and as a springboard into whatever it is you want to tell me. So, with that being the most annoying thing about talkative people, and again, I love you very much, but listen to your friends who don't talk a lot. If you're going to go to the trouble to tell them that they need to talk more, you need to give them space to talk more. Let them talk. It's okay to have air in the conversation. It's okay to have a moment where no one is talking. You don't have to fill every second with chatter. You can stop. It's okay. Give that person time to open up a little bit, and I think you would be surprised. And another thing from my experience being around people who don't talk a lot is that people like that are great. They are a real treasure because people who don't talk a lot, for me anyway, I ruminate on things. Like if I'm part of a conversation and a topic comes up, it's kind of like when I'm in line at the drive-thru. I practice my order at least 10 times before I have to say it out loud because it's like I have to rehearse it for some reason. I still usually get it wrong when I say it, but I try. I will rehearse it. And quiet people, it's almost like they have to get a running start mentally before they speak out. And the more introverted they are or the quieter they are, the harder it is to speak out. And talkative people, I don't think you really understand how difficult that is for some people. And for me, I know it's weird because when I hear the sound of my own voice in a group, like it sounds weird to me for a second because all I've heard for like the last hour is everybody else. And I finally found a moment to jump in, and I may have something really pertinent to say or something like, I have something I want to say about this. But I have to wait a minute, like, okay, let me rehearse it in my head. Here's what I want to say. Okay, now we got to wait for a break in the conversation. Good luck with that. Some conversations have more breaks in them than others. Some conversations are just frantic and there are no breaks. I don't even try in those conversations to speak up. I would just sit there and just listen to everybody else. And I'm always shocked when somebody asks me a question directly. I don't know what to say. I'm always caught off guard. Listen to quiet people, because I promise you, if you have one in your life and they are speaking up, it's probably a little bit difficult for them, and whatever they have to say is probably something you're going to want to listen to. It's going to be either profound or pertinent or the funniest thing you've heard all day. You want to hear it. Quiet people don't talk just to talk. They talk because they really have something to say. And it makes it even harder when they finally start to get it out and you cut them off. Because you're thinking, oh, I already know what they're going to say. I'll just finish their sentence and then I'll just take the conversation the way I want it to go. Let them finish. Let them talk. You can't, on one hand, tell them they need to talk more, and on the other hand, you literally won't give them the opportunity to do it. Just be mindful of what you're doing and saying around quiet people. The next time you're around them, think about it. I want you to make a conscious decision to focus on what you're saying and what they're saying. And when they're speaking, close your mouth. Close your mouth. And don't just listen to respond and react. I want you to listen so you can fully comprehend what they're saying. You don't need to be sitting there thinking about what you're going to say in response. Just calm down and listen to the quiet person for a minute. Just listen to them. And if you will do that, and make a habit of doing that, I think you will see this person start to open up more and more because they will become more comfortable around you. They will feel like they will be heard, and they will speak up more in your presence, which is what you said you wanted them to do in the first place. I got my hair done this evening. It's nice and fluffy. It doesn't last, but I'm very happy with it. And I was thinking about this video while I was getting my hair done, and I have a new hair stylist. I just started going to her 6 months ago. Wow, it's been 6 months. And when I first met her, I had to find a new stylist because with my full-time job, I can't go out of town anymore to get my hair done. When I first met her, one of the things she said was, now, I'm kind of quiet. I don't talk a lot. Would that be a problem for you? And I said, not at all. I said, I don't talk a lot either. And typically, when I'm getting my hair done, I would be more comfortable. I would be happier if I didn't have to talk a lot. And I know some people who do hair, there's this thing that they can get, and it's like a little triangle thing, and it has on there, I would like to talk a lot, I only want to talk a little, or I don't want to talk at all. And you can pick, for your session, if you want to talk a lot, little, not at all. So when I started going to her, it was wonderful because we do talk. I mean, a little. We'll talk about stuff like, we both have cats, so we'll talk about cats a little bit, or the upcoming holidays, or local stuff, or we'll talk a little, but for the most part, and I'm there for about an hour and 45 minutes, we don't really talk a whole lot, and I leave there feeling so good. I'm so happy, because hypothetically, if I ever used to go to somebody who was like the total opposite, a very, very talkative person who would always cut me off whenever I tried to talk, hypothetically, sweet person, wonderful person, but you can't talk. You just cannot get a thought out. And so I would sit there, hypothetically, for 2 hours, and this person just talked non-stop. And I would leave there so exhausted. I felt drained, just like splitting headache, exhausted. To the point where I dreaded going to get my hair done. I just dreaded going in there. So, hypothetically, of course. But this new person, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. I look forward to getting my hair done. And it's almost ASMR. There are some things about it that are very relaxing, like the foils in my hair. I love it when she runs the little thing to get the section along my scalp, and then the gentle crinkling of the foil. I would almost fall asleep. But it's such a wonderful experience. Now, if I were a magpie, it would probably drive me crazy to sit there in silence for that long. But it's wonderful. I love it. And I enjoy it. It makes me very happy. But that's just my personality. And people who talk a lot, some people, it's just their personality. They just don't talk a lot because they don't want to. Some people just don't feel the need to talk nonstop, and they never will. And telling them that they need to talk more isn't going to change that. They accept you for who you are. I know I do. I accept people for who they are. I don't expect you to change and be somebody else. If you like to talk a lot, even if you like to talk just to hear yourself talk, I will love you anyway. I just accept that as that's just something that person does. I would never expect you to change and be somebody else. So it would be wonderful if you could extend the same courtesy to people who are not like you and people who don't talk a lot. Love the fact that they don't talk a lot, because it gives you opportunities to talk as much as you want. More than likely, we're going to be there to listen to you. But to listen to your friends, who don't talk a lot, do listen to them when they do talk. It will mean the world to them if you do that. You just do that one little thing. Start making a conscious effort to listen to them. And when I was sitting there getting my hair done, I thought about a short story. This is a book that I kept from college, and I taped it up a long time ago with some masking tape. This is one of my American literature books that I studied. I got a BA in psychology initially, but I used a lot of my electives to take English classes because I love them so much. And I almost ended up with a double major without even meaning to. I was 3 credit hours shy of a double major at the end of my 4 years, and I finished it up later, but this was one of my books. And I was sitting there getting my hair done thinking about this topic, and I was reminded of a little line from a short story, and I want to read it to you. It's from Maridol Lasure, and she was a writer back during the Great Depressions, back in the late 20s, early 30s. And there's a story here. I'm just going to read you a little snippet of a short story. It's called Women on the Bread Lines. And when I thought about, when you can finally get a quiet person to open up, it made me think of this. And as soon as I got home, I had to get this book out and look it up. So I was thinking, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there's a little piece of this story that reminds me of this topic. I want to read it to them. So let me see if I can find it. Okay. So she's talking about a woman named Bernice. Her blue eyes are not clever, but slow and trusting. She suffers from loneliness and lack of talk. When you speak to her, her face lifts and brightens as if you had spoken through a great darkness, and she talks magically of little things as if the weather were magic, or tells some crazy tale of her adventures on the city streets, embellishing them in bright colors until they hang heavy and thick like embroidery. And it just made me think of that. When a quiet person finally gets a chance to talk and they feel like you're really listening to them, it can be a really amazing thing to watch them they just come alive, to feel like you really hear them and you actually care. You're not just asking them how they're doing, or you're not engaging with them because you have something you want to say. You're engaging with them because you really want to hear what they have to say. And it can be a wonderful experience for you and them. So, what I have to say to my talkative people out there, we will never be like you. People who don't talk a lot generally don't change. It's kind of like people who are very talkative generally you just kind of stay that way most of your life. I mean, unless something major happens to you, most people don't change a whole lot. And treasure the people in your life, the quiet people. Treasure them, appreciate them. Above all else, respect them and listen to them. Listen to them. I'm here telling you this because you can't cut me off. I guess you could hit stop. You could stop me or hit the back button, but you can't interrupt me. And most quiet people don't have the opportunity to do this because by now you would have already lost interest and wandered off, or you would have started talking about something else. I'm just being blunt as a spoon, but that's probably what would have happened long before now. We have a lot to say. Quiet people, I think we kind of live in our own heads a lot. I know I do. I kind of have there's like a 3-ring circus going on in my head all the time, and I do live in my head a lot. I think about stuff. I have imaginary conversations with people in my head, and I replay things in my head a million times. I'll think back, I could have handled that better. I should have done this. I should have said that. Or, it would have been really great if I'd said this instead of what I said. And we ruminate on things. So in our mind, we have this wonderful stew of all kinds of interesting things that we want to share. But we can't just blurt stuff out. We have to think about it. We have to process it. We have to practice it. Like I was saying, we have to get a mental running start to get going, especially if we're not in a terribly comfortable situation. And a lot of people in at work and at school are very different than they are, say, when they're at home. Because when I was at home, I talked all the time. I would talk nonstop. But when I got to school, I was totally quiet. And the teachers were always saying, Mary, needs to have more class participation. And my mom would say, what are you talking about? She never shuts up at home. Well, at school, it was the opposite. So, in closing, I just want to say, I love the fact that we have a wide variety of talkative and not so talkative people in the world. I'm very glad that we're not all one way or the other, because I don't think that would work. It's the blend and the continuum that's so wonderful, and it makes things flow, and we can work together to make things really move and flow the way they should. So I love the fact that we have talkative people and not so talkative people. I do wish talkative people could be a little bit more understanding, try to see things from our point of view more often, because quite frankly, most of y'all don't. You look at us as if we're flawed in some way, but we're not. We're just not like you. But that doesn't mean that we're flawed, and it doesn't mean that we need to change. It's the combination that makes everything wonderful. So I wanted to take a minute tonight and do this video for all of y'all magpies out there. It's awesome that you want to have us around, but you have to treat us a little differently. You need to regard us a little bit differently. And I also wanted to make sure that all my fellow quiet people out there knew that you're not alone. And we're awesome. We don't get to hear that very often. Usually when anybody talks about quiet people, you know what they say? I know you've heard the same things I've heard. Oh, you got to watch out for those quiet people. Do you ever roll your eyes in your mind when you think about when people say that? Because I hear that all the time. Oh, it's the quiet ones you got to watch. Y'all forget we're here. You're not watching us. You literally forget we're here. Yeah, you're not alone. So thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to share this with your magpie friends. I don't know that they will watch the whole thing, but maybe they'll fall asleep to it. That's not altogether bad either. Maybe it subliminally will get into their brain while they're sleeping. That might work too. And thank you so much for being here. I really hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again really soon.